Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the July meeting of the Town of Newbury Human Resources Board. Call the meeting to order at 4:08, and present are
Diane Doyle.
Mark Kleckman,
John Farrar,
Anthony Antico.
Lynn Peabody.
thank you all. Chief Fisher is unable to join us this afternoon, but we do have a quorum, and I believe that Town Administrator Blaze will be joining us shortly for the purposes of completing the discussion we started with the subcommittee regarding the classification of the treasurer-collector position. Before we get there, let's go to our regularly scheduled agenda. Meeting is called to order. We don't have yet prior meeting minutes to approve today. We'll hold on that.
No, we have the ones from the June meeting.
Oh, from the June meeting. Okay. I didn't get back to those myself, sorry.
That's okay. I emailed them out on the 25th.
I'm sure I have.
That's okay.
Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of the June 24th meeting?
Yes.
yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Vote to accept the meeting minutes as written. Say aye. Aye.
Second.
Thank you, Diane. Employee issues. Diane, I'm not aware of anything that you're aware of?
No, and Patty didn't indicate that there was anything either.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing there.
Personnel actions and job vacancies. Diane, you filled us in last month on a couple of recent adds to staff, and I think there was one that was still trailing behind. Was that in the library again, or?
Yep, so I was just made aware today that it looks like they've identified a candidate for the assistant library director position.
Great.
The offer letter was just signed today, so that will be going out. So looks like that's been filled. We've also added 4 new call firefighters. Those have been added as well. So I believe what's left to be filled is the conservation agent. I believe that we also have an assistant town planner position open with the
Kristen Grubb.
with Kristen
Yeah.
moving up to.
It was a nice seamless transition.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's what we have, I believe, is openings. I can't speak to the police department, but
Okay. I think last month, I think Chief was talking about still a need for emergency dispatch to fill the void there, I think. But in terms of the patrol staff, I think that was in good shape.
yep.
Okay.
Question about the assistant planner position. Could you, I didn't hear from this end of the table what you said.
So we had Martha Taylor, who was the town planner, planning director. She retired on June 30th.
Yep.
Kristen Grubbs was in the assistant town planner position with the understanding that she was training under Martha to move into that position. So there was a posting for the job, she posted for it, and she was, given the position or took the position of town planner. So
Okay.
now we have an opening for the assistant role.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's been posted, that's up on our website.
Okay, thanks. When we post on the website, do we do a salary range?
So in the job description, it doesn't list the salary range, but I believe that in most cases, there's a range.
Listed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we always post, the processes that we post internally first, and then we post externally.
Okay. So we have the classification schedule, the new one. So when you post a position and the salary range is included, is that the min to the max? Do you post the whole range?
Most oftentimes it is, yes.
Okay, all right, just curious.
Yep. Sometimes it might say up to, or, I'd have to go back and look at that particular posting. You can pull it up, it's on the website. Most
Okay.
times it's the mid to the max.
The mid?
I'm sorry, the
Mid.
minimum to the max.
Okay.
Sometimes it gives us, if it's a salary position, sometimes it is opposed to the hourly rate, it would give
Yeah.
a salary range.
Okay. Who posts that?
Most oftentimes it comes up here and it gets posted by the town administrator office.
Okay, it comes
do
up
not-
here from the hiring manager?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
I'm curious, when you started to ask about the posting of salary ranges, I did see in the, I think it was the Globe last week, about this coming legislation in the state of Mass. Are you familiar with that, man? Where there's some talk out there about making it a requirement, a mandatory requirement. And I don't know if it speaks to municipalities or just private industry, but there's supposedly a coming trend and perhaps a coming requirement for all employers to post salary ranges in job descriptions that are public.
Okay.
I don't know if municipality, are you familiar with that?
No, I didn't see that, but when you look at, say, Indeed or any of those sites, you know, some of them have salary ranges, some do not, and so it's always interesting to see, and so just beg the question.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah,
And I think like most employees, typically the hope is that you can hire below the midpoint, you know, giving folks an opportunity to grow and some, but again, that depends upon, we're talking about the population of the candidate pool, and
sure.
what it looks like, again, based on your classification, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Anything else in terms of personnel actions and job vacancies?
No.
Workplace, discrimination issues, ethics issues. Again, nothing has come to my attention.
No.
Good thing. Safety issues, I believe the current protocols are still in place, but is there anything that might be new, Diane, that you can speak to in town hall? Okay,
Status quo.
thank you. Okay, let's turn next to completing the classification discussion of the treasurer collector position. And Diane, what I'll ask is that if you can,
Let Tracy know.
yeah, if you can let Tracy know, and as soon as we're finished with that discussion, we'll call you back in.
Yeah.
You have to recuse.
Yep.
Thank you.
Second shift.
Tracy, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate the time.
Of course.
And we're going to wrap up the discussion, classification regarding the treasurer collector position.
Okay.
And just as a reminder to folks where we were when we halted the conversation last week, we had determined that the position is an 18. It has moved from a 17 to an 18 based upon the increased level of responsibilities and breadth of those responsibilities. That's been well defined based on the 10 factors that we always look at. And what remained is a discussion of, as we always do, looking at the challenges associated with filling the job if it were to become available. And historically, what we've done is looked exclusively at what a candidate pool might present itself as. What's the likelihood that we will be blessed with a number of great candidates based on job description, again, breadth of responsibilities, technical skills, educational requirement, subject matter expertise, experience in a similar environment. We try to factor all of those things in and determine whether a position should be, in this case, an 18-1, an 18-2, or an 18-3. It's the same exercise we go through every time we classify a new role or reclassify, in this case, an existing role. As a reminder, this position historically, at least since 2012, last time I think it was rated, was a 17.2. So even back then, 12 years ago, before some of these additional responsibilities were included in the job description, it had always been 2, meaning we felt it sort of sat in the middle of difficulties associated with identifying candidates. It was a likelihood that there wouldn't be, tremendous numbers of candidates, but then again, you hopefully didn't have to go to the ends of the earth to find them. So it's always been a 2, and now it's been bumped to an 18. The question is, should it remain a 2? Should it go back to a 1, which is the easiest type of position to fill? Or could it theoretically go to a 3 because of the challenges associated with filling the job? When we finished the conversation the other day, when we stopped the conversation the other day, it felt to me like we were heading towards a 2, but there was still more discussion to be had. There was a little bit of confusion about what the top grade was. We determined it's a 3, not a 1.
That was my fault, sorry.
And so this is where we sit. We just need to determine whether it's a 1, 2, or 3. Tracy, I'll turn to you to offer some initial thoughts here, or continuing thoughts.
Yeah, I think the 2 is appropriate based on looking at some of the other 17.2s, understanding what happens out in the marketplace when I look for a 3. The most difficult positions, the jobs that we're not going to find someone are people who are trained in municipal fund accounting. Basically, unless you've worked in a town or a not-for-profit, you're not going to find that person. An assessor. No one goes to college to become an assessor. It's not coursework that you would take outside of a municipal training program, things like that. With the treasury collection, both parts of that job, treasurer is very similar to what you would find in in financial treasury services, reconciliations, banking, those types of things. And collection is very similar to what, a receivable clerk would do. So those pieces may be, I wouldn't say easy, but easier to find. But then when you go into the HR section, now you're drifting off into another realm, which you might not find a person that has treasury, collection, and HR experience all wrapped into one.
Right.
A lot of these municipal jobs, as you all know, we've combined so many of them together, just we have people wearing multiple hats, so I would say.
So your sense is that, based on the combination of those 2 things, that you'd be comfortable being at a 2?
I would.
Doesn't necessarily move to a 3.
I'd be comfortable at it too.
So open up, thank you.
But
Chris.
whatever you.
Yeah, so open up the conversation.
So
Thoughts?
I have a question, and sorry, apologies if we've already discussed this. Trace, we have the assistant finance director. Do we have a finance director? So it's grade 18.3, an accountant/assistant finance director.
Yep.
Is there a finance director?
You're
That would
looking at
be
it.
me.
Okay, so that is not up in, that's just part of your title,
Town
it's not
administrator.
added, to
Yep.
the, as /finance director.
Tracy would need 6 or 7 business cards if this were a private enterprise.
Yeah.
And I'm at .2.
Okay. Yeah, you are a .2. Chief of police is a .2, fire chief. So is it okay for me to continue on this path of just looking at different positions?
Sure,
For
that's
an
exactly what we do, yeah.
Okay, so I see going back to that one, the accountant/assistant finance director is a .3.
Yep.
So that would be the hardest to fill out of the scale, 1, 2, 3. I would think that finance, there's a lot of finance people out there.
Yep.
Right, and so why would that be considered a .3?
So there are many finance people out there.
Yeah.
There are very few of them that understand municipal fund accounting.
Okay.
So that's very different from financial accounting.
Yeah.
It's a whole different realm. I can tell you in undergraduate, we had about a 5-minute class in that,
Yeah.
a little discussion. So if you're not coming from a municipal background or working for a not-for-profit, because they also use a fund accounting model, then you're going to come in here. A lot of people have tried to equate their financial accounting background with fund accounting, and it's just a very different world. They have a lot of
Okay.
trouble. So finding, and naturally, when you're hiring that position, you want someone experienced
Yep.
to come in because there's a lot on the line there. So
Sure.
both, like you said, both that position, the town accountant role, assistant finance director, and the assessors, those are the two that it's really, really hard to find people with the qualifications that they need to be successful in.
The finance, the assistant,
So it's town accountant, assistant finance director,
okay, that's a
Yep.
difficult one, and
assessor,
assessor.
and that's the other one, I believe, that's a 3.
Point
And the director of public health as well. Those are all
Yep.
threes.
Yep,
Oh, director of public health is a difficult position?
that one I,
It's a .3, 19.3.
I probably would classify that as a .2, to be honest, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Okay.
when that was.
It's probably been many, many years since that was
Yeah.
done as well. Don't know what the circumstances were, but
Okay. When I was on the board for higher ed for a decade, the fund accounting, you
Yep.
know, was very interesting. We had a really great CFO, I guess was his title, and he had been there for a long time. And would just, Marty, what do you think? He'd be like, okay, you know, I can do this and this, and he just knew his stuff. And that, what a good thing for a board member to be able to rely on that expertise.
Yep.
You know, and know that we weren't going astray or we weren't mixing things up. So,
Right.
I get it.
It's a budgetary-based
Yep.
accounting system, so it's much different than your regular debits and credits.
I can speak to that as well. Again, it's not specific to municipal fund accounting, but, you know, I ran a headhunting enterprise for many, many years, and it included accounting and finance folks. And I can tell you that, you know, we would shudder when clients called us looking for candidates.
For municipal.
Who, yeah,
Yeah.
good-sized jobs that they were willing to pay us significant fees for, but the candidate profile needed to include specific fund accounting.
Right,
And, you know, you'd have to swallow hard to take those assignments because they were truly few and far between.
Okay.
As opposed to a traditional CFO or a corporate controller or treasurer for that matter in a private enterprise, much easier to fill roles. The position may be bigger and broader, but in terms of background, as Tracy said, there were 50 traditional CFOs for every someone who was a director, for every individual who was a director of fund accounting.
Yep.
Yeah, they are hard to find, so, which is why you gotta hang on to them.
right.
I would think that the 18.3 is the, like you said earlier, the unique aspect of municipal financing, city, state requirements to understand. And Latin expression over the door is that my office is all about not a funding issue, but a spending problem. And when you think about it, there's no element at the office to bump funding. It's whatever the stable community offers, especially when you've got a unique community with no industrial base.
Right,
It's the number of residences, and you've got to think that some reasonable percentage subsidizes the rest of the community, just because of the value of homes and all that implies. What is the pool? Others, if the assistants working in other communities looking to step up, and there's no opportunity in their household, so they come to you.
that would be what we would expect to hire,
It's
people who are wanting.
and not in a pejorative manner. It's proselytizing others, but healthy. I mean, every town's got to know that their assistants are looking to grade up unless there's a chance in the recent future of their bosses being retired, and they're going to go look.
Every town has its time in the barrel.
Sure.
Right.
In these kinds of.
We had ours.
Yeah,
We had
there was a
our
run on
own
the bank here
times.
over the past year or so.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
The hope is that it turned. Peter will rob from Paul in this direction.
Right, right.
Yeah, in a large community, it's reasonable to assume that they could get a pay bump with less work.
It can happen.
Well,
And you know, when you work in a smaller community, and if you have a relatively new staff, there's not gonna be any room for movement for a long
And
time.
a lot of hats.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I can, back to the matter at hand here, I think what's clear by looking at this most recent grid from 24 is that the town historically has been, and I think rightfully so, very judicious in the use of the .3,
Yeah,
you know?
makes sense.
There might be some question about the director of public health, but putting that aside, over the entire enterprise, there are only 3 positions, if I'm reading it correctly, that are rated at a 3. And Tracy's already spoken to why that is, at least in 2 of those 3 cases, so.
The accountant.
Another reason why I feel like this is a tough job to fill, but I'm not sure it rises to the level of 3. So Tracy, your recommendation is a 2.
I can see the two.
Any
I can
further
support.
discussion?
No?
Questions?
No?
Seeing none, let's vote on it. Lynn?
18.2.
Thank you. Tony?
Point two.
Point two.
Point 2 for me as well.
18.2.
Point 2 it is. Thank you very much. Let me call Diane back. Do you have minutes for us?
Sure. And her seat.
So we can talk about that a little bit, if you're okay with that?
Sure. Oh.
Sorry. Hi, Nick. I just thought that while Tracy was here, perhaps we can forward the discussion that we've been on hold with for a couple months here relative to our last remaining agenda item, which is discussing the compensation survey that was an interesting one for us a number of months ago, and then we've had some delays since that time with budgets and fiscal year ends and all manner of things. So Tracy, you want to share some of your current thoughts about that?
Sure, so one of the things, I know we've brought a number of classifications before the board this past year, probably more than we have in all the years I've been here, because we've had a lot of movement, like Mark had mentioned. So rather than doing it piece by piece by piece, and understanding that while we were out in the market, we were having a very difficult time in being competitive, I thought it might be a good opportunity for us to consider doing a comprehensive salary survey, study, classification, which I don't
At
know
least-
that we've ever done that here. It's pretty standard, most communities do it at one point or another, to look at all of our positions. Some of them will be harder than others to gather the comparative data because we do have those jobs that wear multiple hats. But for the most part, we should be able to get some information that will at least be another tool for you as you're evaluating the different positions as time goes on. You'll have that data in front of you,
Right.
so.
Great.
We did get one quote, but it has been put on hold. So we've got to seek 2 additional quotes, and then we obviously choose the best pricing and move forward with the analysis.
Okay, great. Do you have any current thinking as to how you'd like to structure the process and what role, if any, you'd like us to play in that?
So it's up to you. You're welcome to evaluate the proposals as they come in if you're interested in reviewing those. If there's a particular way that you would like to see it structured, the data that comes back, if you want to see it in a certain format, or if there's certain information that's important to you. One thing that might be helpful, I was just kind of thinking as we were initially looking at this, sometimes it's great to see the numbers of the wages, but if you don't know what the benefits are on this side, you're not necessarily doing the right comparison, because some communities, like in West Newbury, they paid 50% of the health insurance, and I think Salisbury maybe pays 90%, or, there's all different things that go into the whole compensation package, but just things like that, if you think of anything that might be important as we move forward in the future.
Thoughts?
Good.
Or should we start with the proposals? That may give us a roadmap as to
Sure.
how much data they gather, whether this is something that at the municipal level they used to. I don't know.
Is
I,
it,
I thought we had already had this conversation, and seeing it on the agenda, I thought, oh, good, maybe we've gotten some proposals, but it sounds like we,
Got one.
okay, and that was the original one that we
The
had
original.
a couple of months ago.
Mhm.
Has it gone out for an RFP?
Mm-mm. No,
It- Okay.
no, not yet.
What is needed for it to go out for a bid?
Just putting together all of the details for the RFP, understanding what exactly you want for information. We'll put
Okay.
it together just so the request is consistent among all the vendors.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
So does preliminary work have to be done to reach out to 2 more vendors before we create a wish list for the RFP?
No, create the wish list, anything you
Okay.
want. So I'll make sure that all of the vendors get the same request.
Got it.
So they're all working on
Okay,
it.
so no more preliminary work has to be done with 2 more vendors before we
No.
come up with it? Okay.
No. I just wanted to have a ballpark.
Yeah.
That was just someone that I had worked with in the past. So I said, what is it running now? It's been a long time.
Right,
Just to get an idea of what kind of money we'd be looking at.
okay.
so they didn't offer an agenda, they just gave you,
They did,
okay,
bare bones,
okay.
kind of, just the analysis from the other communities, like positions. That was it.
Okay. And is that a model for the other 2 that you're gonna go out to?
Unless you have additional information that you'd like.
Possibility to review what you already have in hand?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yep.
Get a sense of,
Yep.
are these like communities that they're offering you?
That's generally what they do, and we've found, like communities aren't always communities with similar populations. People generally say, oh, same population, that puts us out in Western Mass, and they're not really comparable, so we try to keep it within the Essex County, the Merrimack Valley, similar sized communities, similar,
So
you
there's
know.
the familiar names.
Right, things that you would recognize.
Okay. Yeah, to John's point, if we can take a peek at
Yeah.
what you have to date, that
Yeah.
might help us create a blueprint for what else you might ask for in an official RFP.
Yeah.
Shall we add that to next month's agenda?
Yes, please.
Positively, yeah.
Then let's.
The only thing that I'd ask is as you deliberate, not to discuss the
Understood.
proposed amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So would we see that information before the meeting, or is the?
oh yeah, I can email it to you.
Okay, that way we can kind of prep for
Absolutely.
the conversation?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
And that does not need to go into an executive session, does it? What is it, legal, real estate, and something else?
Yeah, there are
Personnel.
10
Yeah.
considerations, yeah.
So, talking about,
Reputation.
Negotiations,
Yeah.
things like that.
yeah, so talking about compensation surveys would not fall into any of those categories? Okay.
Because you're not talking any
It have to be
specifics
a
about
specific
certain roles.
individual.
Individuals.
It's not,
or in roles, there'll be none of that, so. All right, then I think what we'll do is,
I would think that the request would be fairly, not like a deep dive, because I would think it would entail what are other communities paying for like positions, what are the benefits?
Mhm.
And in your experience, do they look at our rating documents and how we look at our, like,
So you can have them do anything, you can have them establish, when I worked with them, we needed to establish rate, we didn't have the classification format that you
Right.
have established here, so we started from nothing, we had nothing. They'll do whatever you want them to, but you don't, I mean, I think your classification is
yeah,
pretty sophisticated.
work expands to time allowed, so
Right.
we can, we can create as narrow or as broad a range of considerations as we want. If it's
Absolutely.
as simple as, with an asterisk, that not every town's treasurer collector has exactly the same responsibilities, but
Sure.
within reason.
Right.
We can look at the pay scale, we can look at the benefits package. Would there be any other significant factors that you want to look at, besides those two things?
Yep. Just get a sense of,
Yeah.
No, because just putting it out there with benefits, you're gonna get every benefit that a town would have. You know, so some might have more benefits, some might not have as many benefits, but they should do that in the information that they would be giving us. You know, town A only has medical, dental, vision. Town B has, you know, the whole gamut.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So when we started this discussion, which was a number of months ago, as I recall, you were right in the middle of a rather robust turnover of staff, and it
Yes,
was,
we were.
it was front of mind.
Right.
Fair to say that things have calmed down, but still, this would be a good exercise for the town to.
Yeah, you're still gonna have, in the coming years,
Yeah.
you're still gonna have some turnover
Right.
of positions.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so would we agree then that we'll have this as a major agenda item for our next meeting?
Question before we move forward? What's the outcome of this? You know, so the budget's already in place for
Yes.
FY '25, right?
Yes, budget's in place. Like I said, a tool. It's a tool for primarily you guys as you're ranking, and also for me as I'm hiring,
Mhm.
to see, okay, at least I'd have something if I have to go to town meeting or to the select board and say, okay, you know, you have a salary here for $10,000, all the other communities are paying over 50,000. We need to raise this line item. This person's been in this job for 37 years, and the market's changed, you know, and a lot of times, until someone leaves that position,
Not an issue.
it's not an issue. But like we've seen in the past year, there was some discrepancies in where we had to hire people, we had to, there were some concerns with some of the classification levels where you might go outside of a level, which didn't really happen before, and that kind of tells me that it might be time to look at the bigger picture, and just see where we are, so we stay competitive.
Absolutely.
You know, you want the best and the brightest for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Other thoughts?
are there town enterprise meetings where town administrators gather? Do you have a society?
We do, we have a
And-
Mass Municipal Managers
And
Association.
how far afield does it reach? I mean, you go to the Berkshires, or is it just Essex County kind of thing?
Massachusetts.
Right, and how do you segregate those that are familiar in makeup and finance and frankly, population and location?
Well, like I said, Essex County
Yeah,
is kind of where we're looking at, because
Yeah.
most of the people that live in this area work in this area. That would be one of the significant factors, and certainly population enters it, but it's not the end-all, be-all. We
No.
want like-sized communities that could be from, you know, we're on the high end of the 6,000, so maybe an 8,000 population. Merrimack might be comparable, even though it's a little bit bigger, it still has a lot of the same functions and a lot of the same, you know, the departments are set up, established similarly. When you get into a city, then the operation functions a little bit differently.
Right.
Newburyport probably wouldn't be a good comparable, even though it's next door to us, but it's a lot bigger, and you have more segregation between all the various
Right.
duties and
I
functions.
would think it's more about the makeup of the enterprise versus the population.
Pretty much, pretty much.
How you segregate responsibilities.
Yep.
You're trying to focus on where's that other Newbury that's doing so well with their people,
Exactly,
in essence. you know?
exactly. Who are we gonna pull from, how is it gonna be attractive enough for someone to jump from another community? Like John said, you know, if the treasurer collector's position was ever open, who's the assistant treasurer collector that's gonna find this appealing? And what are the other jobs that are open right now? We've, you know, struggled with finding a conservation agent. The agent that had been here for many, many years, over, what, 25 years or something, when we went out posting at that rate, crickets. Nobody was interested, and then when we started making phone calls to see and looking through the Massachusetts Municipal Association's job postings for that particular job and understanding what they were paying, we were way off. So
The benchmark surveys,
The
you used to be
benchmark.
able to segregate them by population, by region, I mean, you could pull
Yeah.
the data from many different ways.
Right. Well, that's how this conversation started a number of months
Right.
ago, and unfortunately, the state no longer provides that.
nobody provides the
that
information.
capability.
I don't know if they're too busy or they're just not bothering.
They're still working on the software? Went down 9 months ago, by the way?
No,
I
that's
haven't gotten any
fixed.
updates.
No, supposedly it's fixed, but,
Yeah?
All right, so it sounds like we're in agreement, unless I hear otherwise, that we'll add the compensation survey to the agenda for next month as well. In advance of that, Tracy will get us whatever she has
Yep.
already from the one vendor.
yes,
Um,
you can look at that and see if there's anything
Right.
to be
And
added to it.
then immediately after that, we'll either draft something new or use that as a template to go to 2 more vendors.
Yep.
What's the typical turnaround time for the RFP? Is it-
For the RFP,
Yeah.
probably 2 to 3 months, depending.
Okay.
Depending on what the value is. So our bids are dictated by the value of the contract.
Right.
If we don't have to do sealed bids, it's much quicker. We can turn it around in a few weeks.
Okay.
But if we have to go to sealed bids. it's
So if we can get this nailed
2 to 3
down
months.
in the August meeting,
Mhm.
the RFP can go on shortly after that.
Yep.
And maybe have an answer by the September meeting, or from September, probably in October.
Yep.
Okay. Give us plenty of runway before next year's budget needs to be in place.
It does.
Great. So we'll add that to the agenda with the understanding that it'll probably be a robust conversation, so plan on maybe a bit of a longer
Bringing in
meeting.
pizza?
Chances are we won't break our record of 8 minutes.
No.
I think it's 8 minutes, isn't it, Diane?
I think it is.
Okay, next meeting, Monday, August 26th, is that a date that works for folks?
Yes.
Okay, and how about everybody else? We'll check with the chief, but August 26th? Does that work for folks?
Yes.
If for some reason we have an issue, we'll just reschedule and let you know that.
Okay.
Okay, August 26th at 4 PM, so the next meeting, and Tracy will get that information to us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
There's just one quick question. Do you think the lack of information is people are just bringing the shade down for privacy issues to avoid having their employees hunted?
I honestly don't know. I can say it has each year that we've been engaged with them and providing our information, it's been getting smaller and smaller, the data that we have to evaluate, so.
Well, you think about our nearest neighbors in Essex County, the Manchester, Ipswich, Essex, Raleigh, all the small villages here, the Danvers. Do we know what their information factors are?
I don't know. I'd have to
No.
pull it up again, but I know a lot of them. The last few times we've tried to start there, the data just wasn't available. The municipality's just not providing it anymore.
Do we hand it out? Do we make it available?
We do.
Yeah.
We've provided it every
But
year.
but if you make those phone calls, that's when people do in fact close ranks,
Interesting.
you know, because they realize that,
Yeah.
that you're fishing in their pond.
That's the one.
Anything from the State House that, you know, they have local community, community studies, for example, that they provide, you know, if somebody wants to start a business in Lexington, what do I do in Lexington, you know, kinds of things. You know, I'm sure it comes within some of those committee parameters, you know, where people from a certain area, certain towns say, well, you know, I want to begin a bookstore. What do I do? Where do I go? Who do I see? Kind of a thing. You know, maybe something exists on the state level. You know, community, something or other.
We can check. I mean, we can certainly, I think that Mass Municipal Human Resources that is the
That's
state
the closest.
kind
yeah.
of,
That's it, yeah.
yeah. the
But
state.
they're behind locked doors though, that's,
I mean, how do enterprises that have multiple locations choose where to build the next, where does Dunkin' Donuts get their information as to which corner they're going to sit
Yeah.
down a new building? I mean, it's, the information's got to be there for the large, multiple location companies. I don't mean big stores, I mean modest, small stores.
I would imagine most of that would rest within community development
Yeah,
at the state.
I mean, one or
That
two of the
kind of
stores on
data.
Pleasant Street have 4 stores between Portsmouth and here. I mean, it's, they're all over the place. How do they make those choices? They must have some arithmetic that it's based on. Population.
and guidance.
And guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And familiarity with administration. They go to friendly places, not people that are
Sure.
going to
Right.
be.
Well, we know that historically Maya has been the place, I mean, that's been a repository for all of this data. It
It
just
has.
seems like over the years, they've become less and less inclined
Yeah.
to fill the pipeline with all the data that used to be readily available. So now you gotta go out and use a private enterprise or, make calls yourself, but there are just so many calls you can make, so. All right, so we'll add this to the conversation next month and plan on probably spending an hour minimum at the meeting, I think, given the way these conversations are going. But again, thank you all.
Okay.
If there's no further discussion, is there a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
make the motion.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.